Good morning, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. We have been gone for way too long. We are oh so happy to all three be back together on this set.
Good to see you again. Thank you for holding it down the end of last week without us.
No problem. No problem. Let's do it.
Big void in your life without us?
Oh, absolutely. Without you, Jenna, come on. Come on.
My parents say all the time. We are going to start with the biggest story of the weekend, probably of
you're our favorite.
of the NFL season.
No question about it.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
The story that has us reading and rereading it fully to comprehend it. Andrew Luck stepping away from the game at age 29, perhaps the most shocking retirement in sports since, what, Jordan maybe in '93? Luck retires with 4 Pro Bowls in 7 NFL seasons. He retires with the Colts in the Super Bowl mix this season and retires after coming off being named Comeback Player of the Year in 2018. While Andrew Luck is no longer coming back to football.
I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. Honestly, it's the hardest decision of my life. But it is the right decision for me. For the last 4 years or so, I've been in this cycle of injury, pain, rehab, injury, pain, rehab. And it's been unceasing and unrelenting, both in season, and off season. And I felt stuck in it, and the only way I see out is to no longer play football. It's taken my joy of this game away, and this. Sorry. I've been stuck in this process. I haven't been able to live the life I want to live. Taking the joy out of this game. And after 2016, where I played in pain and was unable to regularly practice, I made a vow to myself that I would not go down that path again. I find myself in a similar situation, and the only way forward for me is to remove myself from football in this cycle that I've been in. Come to the proverbial fork in the road. And I made a vow to myself that if I ever did again, I would choose me in a sense.
So, guys, I think the news itself was almost as surprising as everyone's reaction to the news. See, you tweeted right after you heard. What was your reaction to Andrew Luck retiring?
I mean, totally shocked. But it's football and early retirement is totally different than the other sports. Because what Andrew is talking about is the reality that all professional football players face. At one point, can I take the pain that my body is going to be in? We talk about it all the time. It's a collision sport. Yes, absolutely it is. But everyone doesn't have the mentality to be able to absorb those collisions. And he talks about what he's been going through the last 4 years. Not just this April, the last 4 months since he strained his calf, but I can understand that. And I can have a great deal of empathy for him. He said this was the toughest decision he's ever made. And you have to look at it. When you're in life, the decisions you make are important, especially as a young person. Is the most important decision is who your friend's going to be, then where you're going to go to college, and then ultimately what type of career you're going to choose, and then who are you going to choose as a spouse or a significant other, as a partner that you're going to walk through life in. And this decision he made was more difficult than all those decisions, because at some point in life, regardless of what you do, you have to choose yourself. And he couldn't put his body through what he's been through the last 4 years. I mean, he missed the whole entire 2017 season, which in this day and age where the quarterback and playing quarterback is easier than ever, just imagine how gut-wrenching it is. He goes back to playing some of the best football he's ever played last year, getting them in the playoffs, winning a playoff game, and then now getting injured and calling it quits. You know, to me, I got tremendous empathy for him. I can understand how he can come to this conclusion because what I'm worried about right now is he talks about the last 4 years. I wonder how many painkillers he had to take. And was that part of his decision making as he tries to go on, you know, to try to have a full life? Because for me, You know, that's one thing that I worry about being a professional athlete with all the surgeries and everything, your pain tolerance, and then with the opioid epidemic going on, was that something that spooked him and said, you know something? I can't take any more painkillers. I'm not going to have this through my whole life, this off season where my body is not healing. Because typically in NFL, your body heals up before the next season. But now he's getting ready to put trauma on top of trauma compared to what was already going on in his head. So I got nothing but respect for guys that play this game. I know this game is brutal. And for him to be a walk away, he probably walked away from at least $250 million.
Yep.
At least 10 more years of football playing at his highest level. So for me, it was gut-wrenching to be able to hear Andrew, to see him get choked up and walk away from a game that we love.
And to me, maybe the hardest part to hear was when he said what the last 4 years have been like. The cycle. Injury, pain, rehab, injury, pain, rehab. No finish line in sight. No, okay, now I finally have a clean break of it. He thought he had it last year, briefly, in that few months where he was fully healthy, where he was playing the best football of his life. And then this damn calf injury, which turned into an ankle injury, which turned into a lower leg injury, which turned in from a 2-week to a 2-month to a 4-month process. I was totally shocked, though. I feel for him, and I to echo Chris's empathy, but on August 4th, he told Peter King he's playing week 1. On August 19th, he told the owner, I'm retiring. And you mentioned Michael Jordan, and we can cross sports or stay in football and talk about other shocking young players retiring. Almost all of them, though, had one thing in common. Whether it's Calvin Johnson or Gronk or Jim Brown ages ago or Gale Sayers or Barry Sanders, all of those guys, to a degree, if not completely, reached their potential. All of those guys are Hall of Fame caliber players. All of those guys, when they did stop playing, could say, I at least briefly got to the place everyone said I was going to get to. Andrew Luck is walking away due to a calf injury, among other things, without ever having truly scratched the surface of what we all believed he was going to be and what he showed us he was. It wasn't potential that, oh, we overrated him. That wasn't the case. We saw that in the 2014 season, and we saw it last season. When healthy, how great he can be. But Andrew Luck, which was, we thought it'd be, remember Jim Irsay? If we only win one Super Bowl with Andrew Luck, it will be a disappointment. It will be a failure. They reached one AFC championship game with Andrew Luck, and he didn't have, it's an odd situation because his career was ended due to injury, but he didn't suffer a career-ending injury. Right. And it's also, if this was a concussion or head trauma issue, I think it'd be looked at differently. So the whole thing is unprecedented. There is not a great historical example to pull from of this is like player X. We've never seen something quite like this.
Well, it's also, Andrew Luck is one of the few players in the game who stands out because he has talked about his love of the game, his passion for wanting to be out there, the way he hits guys and gives them a sort of an attaboy when they you know, and they're defending him. He truly loved the game of football. But I'm curious, do you think he reached his potential?
No, he definitely didn't reach his potential. And that's one of the sad things about it. Nick brings up a great point. When you talk to athletes from any sport, as you get older, one of the things that does not torment the great ones is, I reached my potential.
I got there.
You know, when you don't reach your potential, like Andrew Luck grew up dreaming of playing football. His dad was a football player. He's been around athletics. So forget about what Mel Kiper and the experts said about him. What do you think Andrew Luck's been saying about himself since he was a kid? Now, he's not a guy that with all this talent, he's absent of ego. Andrew Luck knows that he didn't reach his potential, and that's one of the sad things as far as his career being cut short.
One of the best movies ever, one of the best lines, and from A Bronx Tale, Chaz Palminteri's character says it, saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And this wasn't wasted, but it wasn't realized. It was not fully realized, and it's for reasons that are, to me, still a little mystifying. I understand what he's saying, but he is not, obviously, the first player to be on this cycle. He's not the first football player. In fact, he's back of many football players that has been on a cycle of, I missed a season with injury. Now I have this other nagging injury. He's the first player at that age, at that ability, at that position, at that salary, and future salary that Cris points out, to say, you know what? choosing me means walking away.
Right.
Choosing me means 2 weeks shy of my 30th birthday, stopping the one thing I've done my entire life. And given his outside interests, his architectural engineering degree, how into like history he is, I hope and I believe he can live a fulfilling life moving forward. But it is going to be for him, I don't know when, he's going to wake up in a few days, weeks, months, whenever, and say, I'm not a football player anymore. And I don't think he anticipated he would be saying that until a decade from now.
All right, well, the Colts no longer have Andrew Luck as their quarterback. They have to move on quickly. What should we expect from backup, now starter, Jacoby Brissett? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We're back right after this. Welcome back. We'll get to what's next for the Colts in just a second. But first, Niners, Chiefs, and Jimmy G. Garoppolo finds Matt Breida in the back of the end zone after a rough little early stretch for Garoppolo.
Perfect bomb on a 0.0 quarterback rating in week 2 of the preseason is the Chiefs secondary in week 3 of the preseason. He was dropping dimes. He looked really good. Credit to Jimmy G.
Oh, yeah, NFL. Don't forget the Chiefs in that defense. Don't forget them. They're back.
That secondary.
Saints and Jets. Drew Brees connecting with Michael Thomas makes an absurd leaping grab. This one good for a touchdown.
Let's go, Money Mike.
Money, money.
Let's do this. Especially outside. Mike made all his money last year playing the slot. He also made that money this offseason at $20 million. Him and Drew Brees hooking up. He letting the people know I'm still hungry.
Oh, my guy, G-Reg.
Panthers practice. Greg Olsen with a sweet one-handed catch.
G-Reg, when he is not injured, which unfortunately is not often. He is still one of the 5 best tight ends in football season.
I can't believe we don't have more highlights in this. Dude didn't grip it the first time. He played patty cake with it. That's NFL. Come on, man. Stop that. We got kids in high school snatching stuff out the air.
Forgot how high the standard is.
We got this dude playing with the ball.
I have to get Greg Olsen in the show.
Get out here with that mess, man. I can see why you was on vacation. Your brain's still on vacation.
Wow. Back to Andrew Luck and his decision to retire from the NFL. The Colts have just under 2 weeks now until the start of the regular season. That means they've got just under 2 weeks now to get backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett ready to go as the starting quarterback. Here's what the Colts GM had to say about Brissett stepping into that role.
We're not going to ask Jacoby Brissett to be Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a unique player. But Jacoby Brissett is a winning football player in this league. And he is I think you heard what Andrew said. Jacoby Brissett is a rare leader. He is. He's a rare human being, man. That locker room loves Jacoby Brissett. They love him. I think you saw it last year when as we went through the season. This is a special guy, man. I'm excited to watch him play.
All right, see, what are your expectations for the Colts with Andrew Luck retired, with Jacoby Brissett now the guy there?
I have high expectations because I kind of have a little advantage on this. I've been watching Jacoby since he played 2 sports star in West Palm Beach, playing for Dwyer High School, basketball star, and also a quarterback. Went on to go to University of Florida, transferred, and then one of my good friends, Bill Parcells, has mentored him for the last 5 or 6 years. And that's why I started watching when New England had him as a backup. I thought potentially he was going to be the guy to replace Tom Brady. They traded him when Indy had the injuries and everything. They traded him, and I don't think the football we saw from him in 2017 is a true indicator of what kind of football player he is. That season, he got hit more than any quarterback in the NFL. But I do believe they can keep their playoff aspirations, and this is still one of the franchise over the next 4 years, they're going to win. They got over $50 million in cap space available to them. The general manager, I believe, is one of the bright young minds. And I believe Frank Wright is going to be one of the elite coaches that we have in the NFL. Look at Frank, what he did with Nick Foles when they got the quarterback issues there. So for me, Frank Wright has been under the radar. His career was under the radar. Great person. But I believe in Jacoby, and I believe he's going to shock a lot of people. Before the season started, I said there's 3 backup quarterbacks that I deem to be starters eventually in the league. That's Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee. That is Teddy Bridgewater in New Orleans and Jacoby Brissett in Indianapolis. They are all legitimate starting quarterbacks. And now with the Colts, they got a top 5 offensive line. oh, he's going to be excited about the great opportunity he's got before him.
I still think they're going to win the division. I think the AFC South I don't think it has any terrible team in it, but I also thought the only potentially great team was the Colts with Andrew Luck. Obviously, without Luck, they're no longer a great team. But I think Jacoby was positioned as, and I think we said it a couple weeks ago, is the best backup in football. Now, the best backup in football, maybe that makes you the 25th best quarterback. So now that he's a starter, you obviously ratchet those expectations considerably. But I also don't think it's fair if people look at just what he did in 2017. In 2017, Cris mentioned the trade with New England. That happened on September 2nd. He played week 1 that year and started week 2. So he had no offseason, no time to learn the playbook, no time to get on the same page with the receivers, any of that.
And I would say half the quarterbacks in the league, of the 32 starters, a guy with no experience, you can eliminate 75% of them that would have been able to start that number week. And it speaks to his brain, his intellect, and his ability to assimilate that information and be able to play in the NFL game, Nick.
100%. And while you mentioned they were planning for Andrew Luck to be their starter this season, he's now been with Frank Reich as long as Frank Reich's been there. He had the whole offseason, and the last few weeks
He's been taking all the first-team reps.
Right. They have been Luck's retirement obviously shocked everyone. Luck not playing week 1, I think, is what a lot of us had come to anticipate. Certainly the Colts were preparing for that possibility. So the offensive line, Cris mentioned, top 5 in the league last year. Luck was sacked a total of 18 times and only 10 times in the final 11 weeks of the season. Marlon Mack is shown to be a more than serviceable NFL running back. And their defense, I think they're one of only 3 teams that didn't allow a 100-yard rusher all year. So when those are your building blocks, and when you see for this season, the Texans still don't have an offensive line. They just lost their running back. The Titans, man, I watched that game last night. They miss Matt LaFleur, and Ryan Tannehill might be the best quarterback on their roster. You mentioned he's a starter. Marcus Mariota, I don't know what's happened to him. And the Jags would be the X factor because what Nick Foles are you getting? But I don't think the Colts, this isn't going to be, I guarantee this, when Manning missed the year and they went from the playoffs to the #1 pick of the draft. This Colts team is not going to bottom out the way that Colts team did.
We seem to have a little bit more info on Jacoby Brissett because, CC, you've been talking about him since that trade from the Patriots. He's a good leader. He's got great pocket presence. He can run a little bit. And you guys both mentioned the offensive line. How far off is he from being a perennial backup to actually being more than, say, a top 25 starting quarterback in the league?
I just believe with what they have around them, the general manager has done an amazing job. And when their head coaching search, when they named Josh McDaniels the head coach, and then he decides to go back to New England, and they hire Frank Reich, the owner, the general manager, what decisions did they make? Because this is an organization that had been mismanaged for a number of years. Their personnel, they're huge on the offensive line to rebuild one of the worst units that we have in football, and they got a bunch of young players. This offseason, people thought they're going to go out, Le'Veon Bell, they're going to pay him that money, they're going to pay him $16, $17 million. Nope, no, they didn't. So we like Marlon Mack. Going to stay with him, going to draft some guys, keep building it through the draft. This team is in position to be able to win. Jacoby has one of the best starts in the league as far as I'm already a veteran, and I got some toys around me, and more importantly, they can protect me up front.
2 quick points. One is, I think now they look back on not spending all their money this offseason, I believe is a huge plus.
Sure.
Because we thought, man, you can win a Super Bowl right now. As much as I like Jacoby, I don't think you win a Super Bowl right now. I don't think you make win-now moves if you knew Luck was retiring. As far as what he's good at, what he needs to work on, the 1 year he started, he was excellent on deep passes. He was excellent throwing the ball deep down the field. He was sacked the highest rate, as Cris mentioned, any quarterback in football, 10% of dropbacks. Some of that was the offensive line. Some of that, Bill Barnwell pointed this out. He did hold on to the ball far longer than you would like to, but you would assume he's cleaned that up somewhat over the last couple of years. If he gets rid of the ball quicker and cuts down that sack percentage, I think he can be an average NFL starting quarterback, which in that division with that roster, I think can be enough to win that division.
Well, he has his work cut out for him early on. Chargers and Titans to open up the season
on the road, starting
in about 10 days. Coming up, were Colts fans out of line to boo Andrew Luck? That's next on First Things First. College football is back this weekend, beginning with the all-new Big Noon kickoff pregame show. Then it's right into the action as FAU visits number 5 Ohio State. Check it out Saturday starting at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
My guy Lane Kiffin, FAU, that's also where Austin goes to school. But Lane Kiffin was around the Vikings when his dad was on the defensive staff. Monty Kiffin was defensive coordinator.
He was your ball boy, right?
Well, he worked for the team. We don't like to say ball boy because some of these guys go on to be head coaches.
To be Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. He was working with the squad.
I got you.
All right, time now for us to go viral. You're watching it here. Yankees were in Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers. Erin Judge had a chance to talk with a fan before the game, and he made a special promise. Listen to this.
God bless you, Erin.
I'll get one for you tonight, all right?
So Judge promised a home run, and Judge delivered on his promise, a la Seinfeld. Was it Tino Martinez? Where Tino Martinez promised like
a la Babe Ruth as well.
Paul
the
O'Neill,
kid in the hospital, Paul O'Neill.
Yes,
Was the pitcher in on the promise? A little hanging curve. I mean,
It hung
he
up
delivered
there.
that. Looked like batting practice.
Come on, man. We're in the stretch drive. We need a few more hanging curves. Not the best road trip. The Yankees were struggling a little bit right now. The black unis is tight, though. Really tight. Those were nice this weekend around Major League Baseball. Changing
better
uniform.
than the Mets, the white on white. I didn't love that at all. The Mets did a little.
Yeah,
white
me
on
and Nick
white.
ain't into white on white either. That's why we do what we do. You know what I'm saying? That's
You
why
got a
we do.
handshake?
That's what we do.
Oh,
No,
right.
you got it.
Okay,
You got it. You get your little
okay.
something.
All right. I did not. I set you up so poorly. Time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. Andrew Luck's retirement was the biggest news in the sports world this weekend. Now it's being reported that the Colts will not recoup any money from Luck. Nick, does this open the door for Luck to return to Indy at some point?
Well, I think that's one of the main reasons they're doing this. I think Jim Irsay, say what you will about him, maybe learned from what happened with the Lions and Calvin Johnson. They clawed back all the money they could, and that slammed the door shut on him ever returning to them. He still has a bad relationship with them. I don't know if it changes Luck's feelings, but $24 million is $24 million. They could have gotten back. They opted against it. So I think the door remains cracked open. I just don't see Andrew Luck walking through it.
Ooh. I'm a little. I might have to come for that money, man.
If you were the Colts.
Yeah, if I'm the Colts, I might have to come get the money back. It ain't the Colts' fault. They paid him. They paid him when he was off the field. I mean, the Lions went after Calvin Johnson. Now, I didn't like the way the Lions went after it, but the way Andrew Luck walks away from it, I might have to come see me.
Just real quick, if I may, maybe one of the reasons they gave Luck the option to go on the IR to start the year, and then they would have had to pay him another $22 million this season. So maybe Luck, by not taking advantage of that, they're trying to do right by him.
And Luck also had a bonus in September, $6 million that was due to him. So I could understand little bartering right there. Okay, all right, that makes sense.
All right, moving on to the NBA. Dwight Howard has agreed to sign with the Lakers after a buyout from the Grizzlies. The Lakers hope he can replace Boogie Cousins, who tore his ACL earlier this summer. Nick, good move by the Lakers?
All right, you guys know I believe in reclamation projects, and you know I've always felt Dwight's one of the most underrated players in league history. With that said, last year he was not healthy. He obviously is a shell of the player he once was, but we sat right here and talked with him. He did seem more mature than in years past, and it's a no-risk move for the Lakers. I'll tell you this much. I think Dwight Howard can make more sense than JaVale McGee when you are going to play a center, and Anthony Davis doesn't want to play center. So I look at this as no risk, low reward, but some potential reward.
This lets you know how bad things were. Yeah, and even Dwight sitting here, I'll be like, Dwight, things is really bad. The Lakers have turned to you, Dwight. Okay? Yeah, I know you look in shape and everything, but you're a shell of yourself. All right?
All right, let's move on to Antonio Brown. His helmet saga seems to be behind him now, that after losing his second helmet grievance with the league office. See, will AB finally move on from this helmet issue?
Yeah, until something else comes up. Yeah, I keep telling you guys, this is just the beginning. Oh, yeah, we're going to see plenty of AB. I just hope that the quarterback is able to get one of the best receivers we've seen in football the last 30 or 40 years. Might be one of the better small players under 6 foot the NFL has ever seen. That's what I hope for Carr, and I hope that John Gruden, leaving from a star being in television, he made the right decision investing and trading for him.
And while I was gone, Mike Mayock seemed to reach his level of tolerance with this when he said, you got to be all in or
I was
all
glad
out.
he said that.
And I think it was important. I think it was finally someone letting letting AB know, hey, man, at some point you got to be a professional, and part of being a professional football player is playing football and practicing football. So I think the helmet issue's done. He'll probably get an endorsement deal with the new helmet and make some money out of it. But I agree with C. Doesn't mean all the issues with it.
And I mentioned this last week. There might be a potential lawsuit with him suing the company that had him injure his feet because they didn't give him the right advice.
Oh.
They put gloves on his hands, but they did not advise him. And he thought that he needed something on his feet, but he thought they were doing something special. So just wait to hear something else coming from that.
Intrigue about the whole feet injury. Jenna just killing him for it. Maybe he got bad advice. Ever think about that, Ms.
You know, I'm staying out of this. One day back, and the bus is already on top of me. On to the Cowboys now. With the regular season quickly approaching, Ezekiel Elliott remains a holdout. Many starting to have serious doubts about whether he'll be there for Game 1. But Stephen Jones seemingly not among those doubters. He's reportedly optimistic the Cowboys and Zeke will reach a deal before then. CC, you think Zeke will be on the field for the Cowboys in their Week 1 matchup against the New York Giants?
I'm glad to hear Stephen Jones say something that was positive. It's the first positive thing that we've heard coming out of there. We heard at the beginning of the training camp, they have offers out to Zeke and the other players, and we heard Zeke didn't even send a counter offer because the offer felt disrespected. And then we've seen Jerry and the son go back and forth, back and forth. To me, I'm glad that they're able to say something positive. They got a window. You and I were talking, Jen, about 7-8 days before they can get Zeke signed, because you want him signed by next Monday, Tuesday, so you can make those other roster spots. Do you keep him on a 2-week exemption? I don't think so, but someone else, once you sign him, has got to go. So I think it's good news that Stephen is saying something, him and our Jerry, because they've been a good indicator of what behind the scenes was actually happening.
I just want to elaborate on Chris's point. When you said they have this 7 to 8 day window, what you were discussing off the air was if he's not signed by, let's call it a week from tomorrow at the latest, if he's not signed by next Tuesday, even if he signs before Week 1, he ain't playing Week 1 in your estimation. So that when Stephen Jones says this, they believe that in the next week they could potentially get this done. I also think this is not just a quote. I think there is some substance to it. I think that Stephen Jones is savvy enough, at least this isn't about the Giants having to prepare differently. He would not be setting up his fans and the people that cover and follow this team and care so much about the Cowboys for extra disappointment if he thought there was no chance he signs in the next week. I think he believes he could have easily said, listen, we've made our position very clear. We've offered to make him one of the 2 highest paid running backs in the league. Ball's now in Zeke's court. If he says that, I would have less optimism than him saying, I think it'll get done in the next week.
And don't the Cowboys have to put together some semblance of a game plan to start the season, at least against the Giants, knowing what their depth chart looks like at that position?
Most coaches, they try to tell the players we're going to concentrate week to week. But when you sit down in the team setting and you get through those preseason games, the coach sets the agenda. And typically, he sets it up in NFL quarters. And he tells them the first 4 games of the season, the second 4 games of the season, and he'll go through different phases as far as the bye weeks, dealing with injuries, distractions, playing Sunday night, playing Thursday. So that first week, it sets the agenda as far as, man, this is what we're getting ready to do. As Denny Green used to say, man, we're getting ready to fight all day. We're going to march all night. And we get ready to do that for the next 4 months. I need everyone's undivided attention. But then he would break it up into, in this 4 games, we're going to have to go 3 times on the road. In this 4 games right here, we got teams that we're favored against. So, yes, it becomes very important how we're going to play that first month of the season. And don't sleep on the Giants, especially with the defensive line being in question for Dallas. Man, Barkley could rush for 200 yards in that first game, and the Giants could pull off that upset.
All right, well, it feels like we're at least getting a little bit closer to a deal with Ezekiel Elliott.
Nothing adds to the excitement of watching the game quite like having a shot at $1 million payday. Draft your single-game showdown lineup and feel the sweat like never before. It's simple. Just draft 6 players from the season opener. Stay under the salary cap. See how your team stacks up against the competition. But you don't have to wait till week 1 to get in on the action. Right now, all users can get a deposit bonus of up to $500. Download the DraftKings app now. Get in on the action. For a limited time, both new and existing users can get a deposit bonus of up to $500. And as an extra special week 1 bonus, new users can put in my code FTF to receive a free shot at $1 million with your first deposit. Don't forget, that's code FTF for your free shot at $1 million. Only at DraftKings. Make it rain. Minimum $5 deposit required. Deposit bonus requires a 25 times playthrough. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Moving back to the Colts now. So when the news of Andrew Luck's retirement first broke, the team was actually in the middle of playing a preseason game. News spreading throughout the stadium in real time. Fans, upon hearing about their quarterback's decision, reacted in the moment. Some of it wasn't pretty.
All that you've meant to the team and the city and the stunningness of the decision. Any reaction to the fans? Did you hear the reaction walking off the field?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say I heard the reaction. Yeah, it hurt. I'll be honest, chap. It hurt.
Nick, what did you make of the fans booing Luck?
I'll be honest, almost nothing. I felt for him. He didn't deserve that moment. But I also think this is, for some people, for some media, one of their favorite hobby horses, wagging their finger at the naughty fans, even though it is not emblematic of an entire fan base. It is an emotional reaction amongst people. Keep in mind who's there at that point in time. This is a preseason game at the end of the preseason game. These are your diehards of diehards who have just, in the moment, had their hearts ripped out. Some of them, maybe most of them, season ticket holders who have now realized for the second time in the last 3 years, I have paid for season tickets thinking I'm going to get to see Andrew Luck. I'm now not going to get to see Andrew Luck. And they haven't seen his press conference yet. They haven't seen how emotionally distraught he is. And so they reacted poorly. Not a handful, but the people who were there who did that. To me, there's not that different than the fans in Toronto that cheered when KD got hurt. It was an ugly moment in a snapshot in time that most of those people would not do again upon time for reflection. I don't think this is an indictment on the city of Indianapolis, the fan base. Bob Kravitz said it, who's a great writer up in Indy, and I think he's right. If tomorrow they said Andrew Luck's going to hold a parade or hold an event, he would have tens of thousands of adoring fans show up to thank him for what he accomplished there in this brief 7-year window. So I don't read too much into it. I think it was some diehard fans saying, you got it. He's retiring? It can't be the most shocking retirement ever and not have some immediate emotional reaction. So that was how I reacted to what the fans did.
For me, I've been around sports my whole life. And most of it has been, participating on the field. But I love sports. I love all sports. I traveled around the world seeing golf, tennis. I traveled around the country watching Michael Jordan. And I've been a season ticket holder at the NBA 20 years. So I'm a fan myself. But as an athlete, and I learned early in my career, when I left Middletown, Ohio, and went to Ohio State, in that first game there was 100,000, the coaches let us know, man, these people have been watching football a long time. They're not here to be cheering for you if you don't do nothing. And just learning with that Ohio State franchise, they say, oh, it's the Ohio State. Let me tell you what the fans will do to you if you don't play well. They'll either sit on their hands, and 110,000 of them being silent, or when we traveled around the country and you go to Wisconsin, which we did, we were #1 in the country, I think, at the time, lost there, they will boo you. We lost at Purdue against Rob Woodson and them. They will boo you, and they will boo you at home. So my relationship with the fans is I've never been thinking that, oh, man, we had this give and take. No. You know what we had? As long as I can do what I'm on that field to do, the fans that were cheering for the team, the colors I'm on, they're going to cheer for me. But I remember one time I was with Randall Cunningham warming up in the vet before the game. And we're playing catch on the side. We're getting ready, and I'm zoned in. And the guy in all green, painted and everything, is cussing Randall out. You're this, you're this, you're this. And I'm like, this is my rookie year, man. I come from Ohio State. They don't treat you like that. I mean, so for me, it was eye-opening, but I understood. My ability to catch this football is going to keep them people standing up. When I go on the road, people are going to boo me, and it might be my own fans because as a professional, we're being paid a lot of money. This is not college anymore. This is professional sports, and this is what the fans do. It's always been my expectation. And now as a fan, when I'm in that arena, I try to conduct myself as if I appreciate people for their ability. I know they're unique and I know they're special.
And listen, the fandom is not unconditional love, and it never has been. It has always been, we sometimes glorify it and try to make it into more than it is. It is a symbiotic relationship at its best, but not always.
Not always.
Right. I mean, the fans are getting either escapism or great moments or memories with their family.
Entertainment.
Entertainment.
For the most part.
And the players are getting compensated. To Chris's point, you're now professionals. This is, if all of a sudden, if someone went to a Broadway show and they went to go see Lin-Manuel Miranda when he was still doing Hamilton, and they come out right beforehand and they said, Lin-Manuel Miranda has quit. He's not going to be out here tonight, and you're going to see someone else. People in the moment might boo. Now, maybe afterwards they'd find out a good reason, they'd feel badly, whatever it was.
Or they would enjoy the show with the replacements.
Absolutely. And so I think this is the type of story that gets talked about more than it should, because it is so easy. It's everyone can be Captain Easy stance. How dare you, fans? You know what I mean? You shouldn't have done that. Shame on you.
Right.
And no one is gonna be like, you know what?
No, we
they
should
have
cover
booed.
it. No, we should cover it, though.
Oh, I agree.
We should cover it, because we should think that fans, given all the stuff we've seen, at some point would get a little smarter. Now, if Andrew Luck flips him the bird, we're going to cover it.
100%.
So we should be covering it when they treat someone that they supposedly loved, all right? Well, instantly. His career's taken, or his body has failed him. Man, I got a great call from someone at the NFL, and it's someone that's played the league a long time, and it talked about, man, our body's going to fail us at a certain time. Andrew Luck just didn't know. Like, we don't know when. His just happened to be recently.
Well, and it also speaks to, I think, why players, especially more modern players, are recognizing that it's business for me, it's personal for you, or that vice versa, meaning the idea of taking a hometown discount, or the idea of showing extra loyalty to a franchise.
Listen, you better get your money, man.
Right, because they will, whether it's the management or the fans, very quickly, as soon as you stop producing, not all, but some will say, okay, well, you no longer provide me that joy you were providing me, and in fact, you're taking it away from me, therefore I don't like you anymore. Not a lot of it is, I love you as a person, it's I love you as a performer.
I've never left the stadium and been like, you know something, I heard the fans saying great stuff. You know, that stuff I'm going to teach to my kids. People go to stadiums and act a complete fool. Professional people get totally out of character, and they feel like going to a sporting event, I can say anything. Well, you got caught booing, all right? Somebody you supposedly love. I know you're in the Midwest. The best people come from the Midwest. Yeah, there's idiots in the Midwest, too.
All right, we'll leave it there. Take a break. Coming up, more fallout from Andrew Luck's retirement next on First Things First. All's right with the world. We are all back. Coach is here.
What's up,
Things are falling into place.
see you.
Eric Mangini, thanks for being with us this morning.
Coach, good to see you, man. Great look there. Tie, pocket square.
Thanks. I've been working on it.
Working on the look.
Yeah.
Coach, let's get into the biggest story over the weekend. Andrew Luck. Luck retired from the NFL Saturday night. I hope you heard. Otherwise, this is going to be an awkward segment. He walks away from the game at 29 years old after 7 seasons in the league and arguably is one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the position. Take a listen to what Luck said led to his decision.
I feel quite exhausted and quite tired. I do know once I hit the sort of point where I felt like I knew what I needed to do for myself, and talked to Nicole and some, my folks and some close friends and family, and then had some very difficult conversations with Mr. Irsay, Frank, and Cris, but it did feel like, in a sense, a weight was lifted then, but it's it's been tiring. I feel tired, and not just in the physical sense.
Were you surprised, Coach, by the decision? Shocked, even?
Yeah, definitely. I was out to dinner, and a friend of mine got the news, and I didn't believe what he was saying when he initially said it. But you hear in Andrew's voice how tired he is, and how long a process this has been. And when you even look at this most recent injury, it starts in March, and then he's going to be ready for OTAs, and then he's going to be ready for training camp, and they don't really know what it is. It's the ankle, it's the calf, it's all these things. I'm sure after the experience that he had the last time,
The shoulder.
going through this again, and the idea of trying to get through the 16-game regular season where he's being put together just to get to Sunday, I'm sure for him was just too much to look at. And there are a lot of thoughtful guys in the league, and things have changed, I think, especially in the last 5 years with CTE and the things we're learning, where guys are making different decisions. And Andrew Luck has a lot of options in his life, and I'm sure he's looking at it as, I want to be able to play with my kids. I want to be able to live a full life physically, and not go through pain day in and day out. And he made it a really hard decision.
Yeah, a number of things have changed. The concussion lawsuits, the number one thing that changed athletes, especially the ones in the NFL, and their perspective moving forward. And the other thing has been the economics. Because the economics are so strong and guys can make so much money, then you don't have to say, do I stay out here, and I don't have to. So those two things have changed the psyche of NFL players. But to me, everyone does not have a body nor a brain for the NFL. Now, I love football. I love the physical contact. When I was 7 years old, me and my cousin tried to doctor up my birth certificate and took it to the Parks and Recreation to try to get me to play, and the league was 8. You had to be 8 years old. And the lady told me, get my parents and either come back. And I said, oh, okay, I'll be back. I was back 365 days later to finally be able to play. And in the NFL, I played in 3 different decades. I had the body and the mentality for it. Ultimately, there were times along the way I wanted to quit. One time that brings to my memory, the most significant was Buddy Ryan. I had been starting there 2 years. And then Buddy Ryan had me in the doghouse, and I pulled my hamstring in training camp. And in training camp, I couldn't practice with the team, so they had me off on the side. Practice had me running hills. They had me pushing one of the golf carts up the hill with a fat trainer on it. Like, they were trying to make me quit, and I was getting ready to quit. And I had stopped using at the time for over 4 months, and the organization didn't believe in me. I wanted to quit, but my pride and I couldn't just give up. But I could understand why guys do it. I've seen guys in training camp all the time. Down at meal check. They don't check that to make sure everyone ate. They make sure that everyone come down and want to play football. So Andrew Luck, I can understand and respect what his body has been through, and I expect this generation of football players to be smarter than my predecessors, to be smarter than us, because they have better options and they have more information. I'm at the Hall of Fame. I see guys walking around. I've seen guys who have lost their ability to cognitive skills and everything at young ages. So, man, I got nothing but respect for someone that's played that game and take the beating that he took. Because the one thing that was criminal was that offensive line they put in front of Andrew Luck. That's what forced us to this press conference this weekend, what happened to him several years ago, Nick.
Yeah, and the most hits taken per game by any quarterback by far from 2012 to 17, which leads you up until that's the year he missed, was Andrew Luck. And the other guys are either out of the league or they are middling performers in the league. We know that it wasn't, yes, we know of the shoulder, we now know of the calf, but it was also a lacerated kidney. It was cracked ribs. It was one concussion early in his career. So when we didn't know it, when guys like me were criticizing him for not fulfilling the potential, he was playing injured. He was playing hurt. And I know some of that was his, wanting to make the big play and always trying to extend the plays, things we've talked about. So some of it he did to himself, but a lot of it Ryan Grigson did to him. A lot of it, bad team building, trading a first-round pick for Trent Richardson, not drafting offensive linemen, picking the wrong guys. Like, those things we saw, I don't know what David Carr's career would have been. I know what it was. If I'm a Houston Texans fan today, I'm waving this in front of Bill O'Brien and the organization saying, don't let Deshaun Watson have this happen to him.
Yeah, he had to catch a bus to a game last year.
Right, absolutely.
With a punctured lung.
Right, he couldn't fly. And I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, it was that absurd. What is so, though, shocking is it wasn't that Andrew, to me, not what I was hearing from him, it wasn't that he was yet worried, and maybe you should never get to the point where you're worried, about his cognitive abilities moving forward. It wasn't, will I be able to walk with my kids? It was the process of rehabilitation of a calf injury where he said, I've essentially been on this treadmill for 4 years, and I thought it was ending. I thought last year when I played healthy and played great, finally I'm going to get to a place where it's not pain, injury, rehab. It's playing football, practicing football. And now this damn calf injury's lingered for 5 months. And he said, I'm choosing me. And I find it so fascinating that for a player who has been as dedicated, as available as far as wanting to be available throughout his career, as Andrew Luck, at that position, that what choosing him means is stopping the thing that has made him who he is. And we've never seen it. We've seen guys walk away when they had already accomplished what they said they were going to. Luck is doing it before ever scratching the surface of what we all thought he would do and what he showed he had the ability to do.
Well, look, it's a long life, and he's 29 years old, and even though it may not have been cognitive at this point, being on that treadmill of being injured and rehabbing, that's probably not going to change. That's the reality of football, is that there are going to be a lot of injuries that you're going to have to deal with and pain that you're going to have to work through and long-term effects as you get older. And we all know as we get older, things creak a little bit more. They don't, it gets harder, and those things pile up. I remember in San Francisco when Chris Borland retired, and a little different level of player, but he was a young, really successful, emerging defensive player who said, okay, I've looked at this, and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to take this risk anymore. And this is probably going to be more common than not. And we aren't going to be as shocked in the future when this happens, because to Chris's point, the money's different. So there is a level of security that comes with some of these contracts to where now you can take a step back and say, okay, how many Rolexes do I need? How many giant houses do I need? How many of those things do I need? And say, I'm going to choose to take a healthier approach to this.
How much changes now with the direction that this team moves in? Because Nick played out the timeline. August 1st, he tells Jim Irsay, right?
No, he told Peter King August 4th, I'm going to be there week 1. And August 19th, he tells the owner I'm retiring.
So it's not a ton of time for the organization to get Jacoby Brissett up and running, but how much changes if you're the head coach of a team where you had one plan, where your team is in conversation for Super Bowl talk, and now you're in a completely different direction? How much has to get changed and how quickly?
Well, this is a unique situation because he hasn't played. So it's been Jacoby Brissett's team, and there is the value of Jacoby having a whole season as a starter. So through OTAs, through training camp, it's been Brissett's, the operation's been all with Brissett. So you've got that body of work that you can build on. In terms of approach and how dramatically you're going to have to change the system, it's pretty dramatic because you've got to make things work for Jacoby. You've got to give Jacoby everything that he needs to be successful. And there's a big part of that playbook that was Andrew Luck. The majority of it is, what does Andrew like? Now that has to go away, and it's what does Jacoby like? And a point that you made earlier just about the young part of Andrew Luck's career, I think this is always the debate that we have about whether you should play a rookie or not play a rookie, because they don't know how to protect themselves all the time. So even a guy like Kyler Murray behind an offensive line that's struggling, he's young and he's going to take chances because he's young. That's going to lead to certain hits, and this may be a topic for a later time, but it's that maturing process for those young quarterbacks that's part of this whole discussion and why we got here as well.
They haven't been able to do a full offseason study. This offseason, you know what they studied? How well an offensive line was. How can I add a running? How can we help that defense? Now they don't have that opportunity, because their new quarterback, they have a lot of confidence in him, but they didn't get a chance to be able to break down everything because he didn't play much last year. So now how do they go back to 17, find the things that work for them? So for me, there's going to be an extended training camp, 4 to 6 weeks, finding out what Jacoby likes, what he wants to do best, how to get the team around that as far as the offensive line and running attack before they move forward. I still believe that they are a playoff team because this is a talented roster. If that defensive front can come up and be more consistent with their linebackers and their secondary that I believe is underrated and will be better this season, this is a legitimate playoff team.
I'm sure Andrew Luck is waking up this morning going, wait, what happened this weekend? I did what? He's got to live with it now. Coach, stick around. Coming up, are the Steelers better set up for success without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell? We'll talk some Steelers next on First Things First.
And if people are asking, Coach's answer on how many Rolexes he needs is one. It's right there on his wrist.
It's just the one you see.
We're back here with Coach Mangini. We're going viral. Jacoby Brissett is now the Colts starting quarterback, and with that news, some of his tweets from July started to receive some attention. Check these out. If you drink water out of a cup, do you still have to wash the cup? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, because you put your mouth on it.
If the sun is hot, how is outer space cold?
Close to the sun's not cold. It's very, very hot. You'd die.
At which point does it change from going up the street to down the street?
If you're going north, you're going up. If you're going down, you're going south. These are simple questions, Jacoby.
Why do we use toothbrushes more than once if they dirty after first use?
Well, you rinse the toothbrush off.
Why is it that I have to sit every day next to someone who seemingly has the answer to every question ever asked?
I mean, he's asking these questions.
Well, he just has something to say that every time somebody says something to him. Do you know the difference?
Nick?
Yeah.
No, do you know the difference in that?
Between what Nick is doing and what
Yeah, like
Jacoby
when you
Brissett
ask
is
me something,
doing?
I have something to say.
Real information.
Nick's just talking.
Difference of philosophy there. I think I answered all those paradoxes.
It's like my 13-year-old. Every time I say something, he's got something to say back, whether it's right or wrong.
Of course.
I'm just trying to help the new starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts so he doesn't have these questions on his mind. He can focus on week 1 at the Chargers instead of wondering how cold outer space is.
They all seem pretty reasonable answers.
Okay, is the hokey pokey really what it's all about?
That's stupid.
See? He doesn't want to answer my questions. He'll answer Jacoby's. Hey guys, Jenna Wolfe here. September is National Life Insurance Awareness Month. Most people aren't aware of that. In fact, most people aren't aware they need life insurance at all. That's why 40% of Americans don't have it. But getting life insurance doesn't need to be difficult or expensive. Right now, prices are the lowest they've been in 20 years. And Policy Genius has made it easier than ever to get covered. Policy Genius is the easy way to shop for life insurance online. In minutes, you can compare quotes from top insurers to find your best price. Once you apply, the Policy Genius team will handle all the paperwork and the red tape. If you need life insurance, but you just haven't gotten around to it, National Life Insurance Awareness Month is as good a time as any to get started. Go to policygenius.com to get quotes and apply in minutes. You can do the whole thing on your phone right now. Policy Genius, the easy way to compare and buy life insurance. Last night, Big Ben, no one needs it, Dusty. Nobody needs it at all. So just stay back there and do your thing. Big Ben made his preseason debut, and he looked sharp in the process. 8 passes, 63 yards, including a touchdown pass to Juju Smith-Schuster. James Conner also added 41 yards on the ground with 5 rushes. Granted, James and Juju are not AB and Lev Bell. Still productive, though. Coach, what did you see from the Steelers in Big Ben's preseason debut?
I felt like the Steelers look good, and I think the Steelers. I'm cheering for the Steelers, and I don't often say that, but I do like what they've done this offseason. I like the idea of them trying to move to an environment that's so much less based on conflict and dealing with all kinds of distractions. I like the move that they're making there. I think that this is a team that's gone through tremendous adversity this training camp with losing their wide receivers coach, and I'm hopeful that this experiment works. And I think that with Ben Roethlisberger, all of those wide receivers have a chance to become special. And you've got guys like Dante Moncrief, who could make a jump. You've got Dante Johnson. It's James Washington has had a really nice preseason. I think he's got 10 or 11 catches. So they're hoping that that's going to continue to improve. So they're going to be in the mix. And you saw some really positive things defensively as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially early. But I think that this is going to be a team that has a chance to go a long way.
I'm glad you mentioned James Washington. Big Ben did an interview before the game. Well, it aired before the game last night, where he talked about his relationship with Antonio Brown. And he mentioned in that same time I criticized AB, I criticized James Washington. And he called me to thank me for it. And James, said it made him better. And we have now seen whether that's true or not. We have seen that James Washington in the preseason, the Steelers hoped they were getting last year, because we've talked about how many receivers the Steelers have developed, whether they were high draft picks or not, from Hines Ward to Emmanuel Sanders to Mike Wallace to Santonio Holmes to Antonio Brown. A lot of those guys overlapped. Meaning it's not often for Big Ben. He's only had one excellent target to look at. And even AB, the last year, he had Juju alongside him. Can James Washington be that secondary option? Because Juju, to me, is a clear, and he could be a great receiver, but he's still a clear downgrade from Antonio Brown. This Steelers team is going to be an excellent test case on, is it more with less if the less is easier, if the less is less noisy, even if it's less talented. And I think that's one of the reasons you're saying you're rooting for them, because you like the sum is greater than the individual parts. You like that philosophy, that more so than give me as much talent as possible, we'll figure it out. And the Steelers, whether they meant to or not, the last few years had been, we'll figure it out. We've got a star running back, a star wide receiver, star quarterback. Now they just have the star quarterback and a potential star wide receiver who, at least at the time being, seems to be far less maintenance than the previous wide receiver they had. But I do think they're going to need one of those secondary receiving threats to step up. I think James Washington's the most likely of them and the one that they might be leaning on the most.
Number one for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we know they went through the tragic death, sudden death of Coach Drake, their wide receiver coach. Now, with all these young wide receivers, that's something I want to watch. Last year, you and I talked about it. Vikings lost Coach Pirano before the season started. They never recovered, and that was their weakest unit. A lot of pressure on the Pittsburgh wide receivers. They're very fortunate. Mike Tomlin goes out and hires Ray Sherman. Ray Sherman used to coach me in Minnesota. He was coordinator there. He was quarterback coach there. He's coached wide receivers. He coached Jerry Rice. He coached T.O. He coached Randy Moss, coached myself, and a bunch of others. So they're very, very fortunate to bring him up. As far as the wide receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster's got to show that he can play outside the numbers. They have too many slot receivers, so Juju's got to go outside. Last year in the slot, there's only 3 receivers that played more slot than him. So as you can see from the tape in the preseason, we're going to try to run the ball. They look very good run the ball. They got a good offensive line. But if you blitz Ben Roethlisberger, you have a 6-man rush, 7-man rush, he's going to carve you apart. They move Juju outside. They run a little stack route in the middle. Ben Roethlisberger eyeballs the safety and fires a strike in the back of the end zone. That's why Ben is one of the best. I'm excited to see the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do know this. It's not I'm guessing. In pro sports, it's about units. It's about team. And you can be better as a team with less talent. It's hard to win championships with no talent. But in team sports, yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers is possible without AB being there. Can they be better? Absolutely, and I think we're going to see it.
How big of a drop-off is it, though, without Lev Bell and AB there? How big of a drop-off is it if James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster are your main targets, main guys going in?
Well, I don't think the Le'Veon Bell factor is a factor at all. They went through the whole season last year without having him, so they're used to that. And then with Antonio Brown.
But you're confident in James Conner as a number one. He could be their featured back.
I am, and I'm confident in their backfield in general, because you're going to get, because of Ben Roethlisberger and because of how effective he is, you're going to get more 7-man boxes. And that's going to provide opportunities for running backs that other quarterbacks can't create based off of who they are. Now, to Chris's point earlier, talking about the running game, if they run the ball more and now force teams into 8-man boxes, that's going to help the passing game. And that's always been Pittsburgh's brand. Be interesting to see whether they go back to that brand.
Coach is right. Last time they were a top 10 running team, 2010, that was their last Super Bowl appearance. So a lot of that will be tied to the running game. But if you look at Connors and Jalen Samuels, their overall productivity in 2019 was as good and better than L. Bell was in 2017. Touchdowns, yards, everything. It stacked up. So they've replaced the running part. How do you replace 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns? That's hard to do. And
with Jalen and Connor are both averaging over 6 yards a carry in the preseason. Now, granted, it's the preseason, but that's a positive thing. But the receiving core, they're going to have a chance to absorb those receptions. And ideally, by everybody being on the same page, by having some continuity, this offense should work more effectively. There's nothing more disruptive than being on the sideline and having your star receiver come in and say, hey, I'm open, throw me the ball, I'm open. You look at the cards, and the guy's double teamed. And it's like, you're not open.
Yeah.
And then the guy says, well, I can get open. That's like, all right, that's great. Can we move on and look at what's really happening as opposed to what's happening in your mind?
And you still like the Steelers to win the division this year?
Yeah, I'm a big Steelers fan.
Or you're not as big of a Browns fan? Which one?
Ravens
How would
still
you
out
say
there.
it?
Ravens still.
The Ravens could push.
We'll see you a little bit later, Coach. Coming up, what did Andrew Luck's peers think of his decision to retire? And that's next on First Things First. Boxing action is coming your way on Fox. The American Dream. Erislandy Lara going toe-to-toe with Ramon Alvarez for the super welterweight title. Catch it all Saturday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
Man, the American Dream is Ric Flair.
Oh.
Stop stealing.
Okay.
Come on, man.
Nature boy.
We will get to Andrew Luck in a second, but first, Niners
I
Chiefs.
did one of those cameos, do one of Ric Flair. Oh, $100, we get that in.
Oh, there you go.
Jimmy
Nice.
Garoppolo finding Matt Breida in the back of the end zone. Nice grab by the running back.
All right, Jimmy G, nice bounce back game for him after a little 0.0.
That's his first
Blutarski
completion since
quarterback
going out with the XXX model thing.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it is.
First completion, then also since he shattered his knee in that stadium.
Oh, same difference.
Saints and Jets and Drew Brees connecting with Michael Thomas, who makes an absurd leaping grab for
Let's
a touchdown.
get it, Mike. $20 million back outside playing. The Saints, remember last year, week 12 through the playoffs, they struggled because Mike Thomas was playing inside in the slot. Let's move him back outside and get that $20 million.
Cowboys and Texans, Dak Prescott escaping the pressure to hit Michael Gallup for the touchdown.
This is what you get, see? You shamed our staff on the awesome Greg Olsen catch. Now we get a Dak Prescott very just pedestrian play. Oh, he escapes the rush. This is your fault, Chris Carter.
What do you mean? Dak right there, man, he avoided that sack. That could have ended his career, man. These quarterbacks are brittle now. What are you talking about? That could have been the shot to send him, man. It's a retirement. Great highlight.
To Andrew Luck. His sudden retirement had a lot of people on the internet talking, some defending his decision, some criticizing. There was one player who had his back. Here's what Panthers wideout Torrey Smith had to say about the matter on Twitter. Any athlete in any sport that has had a major injury understands exactly where Andrew Luck is mentally. I'm still amazed that you can be criticized for doing what is best for you. See, how tough a decision was this for Andrew Luck?
It had to be gut-wrenching because we know on the surface, as far as where he is right now, but almost every person that's a high achiever, if you talk to them about their childhood, if you talked about them when they were growing their teen years, what did you want to be? And Andrew Luck, man, as bright as he is, man, I'm sure besides saying a football player, his dad was a football player. Football is the family business, or athletics, with his dad being a former athletic director. I know Andrew Luck didn't see himself not playing NFL at 29. So to me, it's so, what does he do today?
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I know what I'm going to do the next 10 years, unless you guys get on my nerves. Okay? But what does he do? Because I know his life does not match up with his dreams and aspirations and moving forward. I know this. I know there's guys that I've seen, the athletes, and they didn't live up to their potential and the torment that they have. But this guy's career cut short, living up to, year number 1, outstanding, getting the playoff. Year number 2, we win a playoff game. Year number 3, we're going to win 2 games. We in the AFC Championship. We getting ready to stare down Brady and the Pats for the next 10 years. Let's never been as successful, even though he bounced back last year. So I can't imagine personally what he's going through on a day-to-day. But it goes to show, no matter what type of sports you play, that's not who you are. That's what you do. And when he woke up this morning, that's his harsh reality. I'm not a football player anymore. And what does he do to be able to move on? I would hate to think, because for me, all my dreams have been about being a highest achiever at the highest level. And that's what the NFL is.
And I want to talk about some of the criticism he's received. Because is it unfair? Sure, of course it's unfair. Everyone's allowed to do. You only live one life. And you should do what makes you happy as long as it doesn't negatively affect other people. And so of course the criticism is unfair. But we cannot simultaneously glorify athletes the way we do, using a lot of military analogies we probably shouldn't. Warrior, going into battle, fighting through injury. Those are all things that they're not neutral comments. They are celebratory comments. Talk about the toughness. And especially in this sport, where we give guys so much credit for playing through pain. And then expect immediately when someone says, you know what, the calf injury, it's too much. I'm done. And not expect there to be some, wait, what are you doing? Even if it's unfair. Even if that shouldn't be the reaction. Part of what we have culturally in this country done with athletes, particularly pro football players, is put them on the gladiator-esque pedestal. And so when you see one of the faces of the league walk away from the game, not because he was, to our eyes, knocked out of the game, not because he was multiple times concussed, not because, and by the way, of course it's better for him to walk away now than if that were going to happen. There's going to be some wait, what? So I understand why that was for some people's immediate reaction, even if upon reflection, we should all wish the best for Andrew Luck. But it can't be the most shocking retirement we've had in 20 years and also universally praised by everyone the moment it happens.
But the truth of the matter is, he didn't get much criticism. I think people were shocked. I mean, he didn't get much criticism. There's a few people out there, which there always will be, none that are important. So for me, Andrew Luck's decision, to me, it was one of the more positive things with the shocking news. I was around when Calvin Johnson retired. Man, people don't even know Calvin. They like Calvin. And he got criticized. And everyone else who's ever, and Robert Smith, my teammate, he walked away from after having 1,500 yards after the 2000 season and walked away from the game. And he was negotiating a long-term contract with the team. So the respect for athletes, it will always be there. And there's only a few things you can compare it to. But this is what I ask people, because pro football is not like any other sport. If you want to get a feel what it's like, and you won't be able to do this because the NFL has banned most of it, not unless you're a former player. Go to an NFL game and somehow stay on the sideline for 3 hours and 10 minutes. And you tell me after being on that sideline 3 hours and 10 minutes, I want you right next to the chalk. I want the guys falling at your feet. I want you to see what people go through. And quarterback, man, you couldn't pay me enough money to sit in the pocket and have guys tee off on me. Absolutely not. And I feel like I got a hell of a lot of courage. But that position and the way you can be brutalized, it's changed in the last few years. That's why the ultimate respect I have for the quarterbacks who played in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, they the toughest dudes we got playing football. You're never some of the toughest guys we ever seen playing football because the rules changed and you could brutalize them. These guys, it's easy for them, and the game is still not easy.
And one other point about how Andrew Luck did this. We all know he left potential future contracts on the table. But Peter King reported this morning, the Colts approached him about, hey, what if we put you on the short-term IR, give you 2 months to see if this recovers, and then you can make the decision. If he could have been retired in his mind and said, okay, I'm going to do that, and collected $22 million this year. He decided to do it in a way that not only obviously ends future earnings, but cuts off earnings that he could have had this season, and I don't think no one would have ever known that he had made the decision already. He did this the most professional way he possibly could have, and he now, to Cris' point, does have to wake up and say, man, I've always said I'm interested in architectural engineering. Am I going to go into a new career at age 29? Am I never going to work again? Am I just going to travel? Like, he's got another, hopefully, 70 years to live without the one thing that he's always done as his North Star,
No,
so
and
to
there's
speak.
for sure going to be a short-term identity crisis when you have been a part of this game for it is just who you are and who your family was, and now all of a sudden you wake up one day.
Yeah, imagine answering that question every day, no matter where he goes. Oh, you want to be architecture engineer? Okay, no problem. We have a project. Why you walk away from football?
Right. Right. All right, we got to take a break. Much more on Andrew Luck and what it means for the Colts moving forward. That's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we're going viral. Andrew Luck's sudden retirement sent shockwaves through the sports world Saturday night, so there was a lot of commentary on Twitter. His favorite target, T.Y. Hilton, tweeted, "Every time I think about it, tears start to flow. No one understands you like I do. Our bond is one of a kind. I've decided to dedicate my season to my best friend. I love you, 12. Hashtag luck to Hilton." J.J. Watt tweeted, an incredible competitor and a truly great person. I'll miss competing against a guy who always played the game extremely hard with an immense amount of respect. Wishing Andrew nothing but the absolute best moving forward. I know this had to be an unbelievably difficult decision. And RG3 tweeted, much love to my fellow Texas brothers. Still remember our time together as Heisman finalists and how we laughed about almost being teammates at Stanford. The decision was only yours to make, and I'm glad you have found peace in it. Respect. That's some poignant words there from a lot of...
And those last two guys I find really interesting because JJ went through a portion of his career where I'm sure he felt like it was rehab, pain, injury, and back leg injuries, and where it looked like it was derailing his career. And RG3 obviously has been on a never-ending treadmill of injuries as well. So those two guys can truly empathize in a way a lot of guys maybe can't.
Especially J.J. Watt, the greatness that he has shown and the lack of being able to get back to that greatness because of explosive injuries that he's had and multiple surgeries, off-season rehabs. J.J. Watt, to me, that really meant something to hear from him.
I don't think people realize how hard it is to get back into it, to overcome the injury mentally, forget physically, but to mentally stick with it.
I think people are always trying to say, I would do anything to do that. So the mental part, they're like, oh, I would do anything.
Yeah.
Well, you don't do anything to do your job. So to think that you would be able to appropriate going that extra mile day after day, God typically gets it right. The mentality with the talent, they come together.
I wasn't here Friday because of that hangnail, so I get it. It's tough. Time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel.
Oh, well, I can't say
no,
that.
no,
Should be upset.
no.
Yeah.
With the regular
a comparable athlete in Kusta.
The regular season let's not get into athletes. Quickly approaching, Ezekiel Elliott remains a holdout. Many starting to have serious doubts about whether he'll be there for game one, but Stephen Jones seemingly not among those doubters. He's reportedly optimistic that the Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott will reach a deal before then. CC, you think Zeke will be on the field for the Cowboys in their Week 1 matchup against the Giants?
It is nice to hear from Stephen and Jerry something positive. It's the first positive news I've heard in a long time since he went to Cabo. So, yes, they got about 8 days, though. They need to get him on the roster before next Tuesday because with the league changing its getting to the final roster, and he might get a 2-week exemption if they decide to use it, which they won't. Then you have to cut another player. But it's... The sands of the hourglass are ticking. Next Monday, you got to get it done.
But this is, to me, a real statement and a real positive statement. He didn't say, listen, we're operating the same position we've been in. Right now, it's Tony Pollard and company. He ratcheted up his fans' expectations that Zeke
It means they're talking.
Absolutely right. That it is not still silence from Zeke's camp. So that is a true positive sign.
Moving on to Antonio Brown now. His helmet saga seems to be behind him. That after losing his second helmet grievance with the league office. See, will AB finally move on from this helmet issue?
No. If y'all want to make AB go on a little tirade again, everyone tweet him or go on Instagram and tell him the helmet he's got is ugly. He don't look as cute in his helmet. Because that was one of the reasons why he didn't want to give up the other helmet. So this is just the beginning, Jenna. Man, divas, man, they do diva-type things. This is just the beginning. We'll just chalk it up for the summer. Hard Knocks. He'll have something else ready for the regular season, though.
But speaking of Hard Knocks, his Hard Knocks appearances have not shockingly made Jenna Wolfe start to soften her stance on Antonio Brown. She's starting to like Antonio Brown. Those producers do amazing things.
Sucker!
Listen, the helmet thing's over. He'll probably actually make a little money out of this with an endorsement deal with the new helmet. But of course, if the helmet was an issue and the feet were an issue, now Cris is talking about maybe he's going to sue the cryogenics company. Regardless, there will be another issue with Antonio Brown. The Raiders just hope it comes with 1,500 yards and 110 catches.
Or just an appearance on the field in a play. Back to Andrew Luck now. The 29-year-old star quarterback retired from the NFL on Saturday. From his rookie year in 2012, Luck has been hit more often per game than any other quarterback who's played at least 3 seasons, leading to a litany of injuries, leading to him walking away. Here's what Colts owner Jim Irsay had to say about Luck's retirement.
This is an unusual situation. I mean, we see Tiger Woods come back and win the Masters. We see, different things. Michael Jordan retire and unretire. I mean, in this case, we just wish him the best, and maybe that he finds some clarity, and maybe, you know, again, he's just going to be 30 years old late next summer.
What do you make of what Jim Irsay had to say, Cris?
It's always a reality. If someone walks away from something and they have age on their side, would they come back? I had played 15 years, was off in the broadcasting career. Dolphins called me. I was like, man, because I had gone to the Dolphins to visit them free agency. Can you play third receiver? Yeah. It's 45 minutes from my house. Yeah, what the money look like? We'll pay you over $1 million, abbreviated season. You know something? I'm available. So as a guy that's walking away, yes, he might wake up and be like, you know something? I feel like I would be more surprised if he stayed in retirement than if he, yes. Man, he's going to feel a lot better after he rests his body for 12 months or so.
Once he's fully healthy, you mean?
Yes, and he's not training, he's not rehabbing. He doesn't know how he's going to feel in 2 years. I know he's going to feel better, and myself and others have struggled with it. He's not going to get anything. I don't care what his degree's in. I don't care if they ask him he want to go to outer space. There's nothing like playing in the NFL, and he will always miss that. And if his body ever gets back to where he feels like he can manage it, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Like, this is, man, you can't, these jobs are so precious. Playing in the league, playing in the NBA, Major League Baseball, it's so precious. There's nothing else like it. There's no other locker room. There's no demographics that he's going to ever go into a meeting room and it be like the NFL locker room. You think in his next life he's going to fall in love with a guy from South Florida like T.Y. Hilton? No. No, he's in the real world. In the real world, there's not as much diversity as what he has seen in the NFL locker room. And there's no other job that can replace it. That's why Jason Witten, that's why he left TV, is playing with the Cowboys. That's why me and others have done the same thing. So, no, I would be more shocked if he stayed retired.
Everything you just said about what the NFL locker room presents is obviously true. Everything you said about his age is obviously true. The money, all of it, and yet he just retired because he didn't recover from a calf strain the way he had hoped to.
No, it's not that. I don't believe that.
That was the last piece. That is not, obviously not all of it. Of course, it was the last 4 years. It was the lacerated kidney and the cracked ribs and the interminable shoulder rehab, and then finally the final straw. Absolutely, I thought that went without saying, but yes, it was a calf strain that didn't turn into an ankle injury. They couldn't quite get right, and he left. And I don't think the money's going to draw him in. Because, as you've talked about, the economics are so different. I mean, he has made $104 million in his career. He's not known as some prolific wild spender. So if it was the money, I think he probably would have, when they offered him the ability to go on the short-term IR this year. Okay, let me take another 2 months to consider this decision, collect another $22 million, and then maybe I still will retire. And so for most players, I would be with C. But for this player, because this is such a unique situation, and he is making such an unprecedented decision to walk away not only at this age, but at that position, and with that much meat left on the bone of what he was supposed to accomplish, and with the most talented team he's ever been on. All of that, the person that makes that decision, I think, is unlikely to 12 months or 18 months or 24 months from now go back on that decision. This morning you talked about what his other options were, because I didn't realize it. I was like, well, what is he going to do a month from now? But you actually laid out a couple things that the guy who we, came to know at Stanford, but the guy who also has other interests. Listen, he just married a woman who's of Czech descent. He's evidently become very interested in that culture. They're expecting a baby. He stayed at Stanford the extra year and got the architectural engineering degree. He started the Andrew Luck Book Club. I don't think he's going to be just a homebody. Now, I agree with Cris. Nothing will replace the juice he got from taking the football field, but he has to know that, and he made the decision to walk away anyway.
Yeah, all of them did. Magic Johnson, he got the tragic news that he was HIV positive. With that tragic news, Magic Johnson tried to come back and play. They forced him out of it. Michael Jordan, you think he didn't know when he walked away from the game? What did Michael do? Michael came back to the game. And I know for Barry Sanders, when he walked away from Detroit, if they would have traded him to Oakland, Barry Sanders would still be playing football. So in my lifetime, all the people that I have seen walk away, and I was shocked. Magic Johnson, I remember the day they stopped practice, brought everyone into the players' lounge, and we were watching his press conference, watching and crying, and realizing in 24 hours you was getting ready to get HIV tested. The whole world had changed. Michael Jordan, Michael was my guy, man. I was shocked when Michael walked away from the game. And you know something? I was shocked when that dude came back. So all the people that I've seen, either me being close to them, they all have that same thing, the roar of the crowd, and I want to get back out there. I'm willing to take a chance to be able to get back out there, and that, to me, is not foreign to Andrew Luck, because I don't care nothing about his wife. I don't care nothing about his kids. I know the NFL. I know what it provides for you. I know the self-esteem it provides for you, and you know something? What else Andrew Luck going to be good at? He might be good at being an architect. He won't be great. He won't be one of the greatest throwers. He won't have people saying, you know something? This kid could be one of the greatest quarterbacks ever.
One of the greatest architects ever.
But
Yes,
Cece,
stop. No.
You found a second career that you happen to be very good at, that you seemingly enjoy a lot.
I was always preparing while I was doing my other thing for this. All right?
And see, got all the juice out of the
This
bear.
is nothing compared to that. When I go to NFL teams and talk to them, and this is no lie, man, I would go back and do my career all over again if you gave me the chance. You take one of those kids, you take Juju Smith-Schuster, take him from the Pittsburgh Steelers, put me on that team. Oh, yeah, let me run a skinny post, Ben Roethlisberger. I would take my chances with all my accolades and say, I'm willing to chance it again, knowing what I know to be able to do it again. Andrew Luck, he made a tough decision. But the people who I've seen who have been strong in their convictions, that being Barry, that being MJ, and that being Magic, all of them, for some other reason, Barry, they wouldn't trade him. So they held his rights, so he stayed in retirement.
Right.
But the other ones came back and tried to play.
All right, we'll have much more on Andrew Luck and what this means for the Colts. That's next on First Things First. Back here with Coach Mangini, the Colts have just under 2 weeks now till the start of the regular season. That means they've got just under 2 weeks now to get backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett ready to go as starting quarterback. Here's what the Colts GM had to say about Brissett stepping into that role.
We're not going to ask Jacoby Brissett to be Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a unique player. But Jacoby Brissett is a winning football player in this league, and he is I think you heard what Andrew said. Jacoby Brissett is a rare leader. He is. He's a rare human being, man. That locker room loves Jacoby Brissett. They love him. I think you saw it last year when as we went through the season. This is a special guy, man. I'm excited to watch him play.
All right, Nick, what do you think? Was Chris Ballard just sort of selling us on Jacoby Brissett? Is he really all of those things? What are expectations now for the Colts?
Well, listen, the Colts are devastated. And Jacoby Brissett, while he might be the best backup in football or formerly backup in football, I thought he was. He's obviously not Andrew Luck. But I don't think Chris Ballard's just selling things there. I think the Colts can, and I think they actually still will win the division. I don't think they are a Super Bowl contender anymore as I thought they were. I thought the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Colts were clearly the three best teams in the AFC going into the season. They are removed themselves from that group. But this is a team that over the final 10 weeks last year, the #1 defense in football, had the #1 offensive line in football. Those are not because of Andrew Luck. He helps the offensive line. He can help the defense by extending drives, but that's because of the roster they were building. This offseason, they didn't go out and spend a ton of money in free agency, but they did acquire Justin Houston. They had all those second-round picks that they added to the roster. They had Paris Campbell. And I thought Jacoby, the situation he was in when we saw him in 2017, he was acquired on September 2nd. He played in week 1. He started week 2. That is, he's learning a totally new playbook, learning a new roster. He now has been under Frank Reich as long as Reich's been there. He got the entire offseason essentially as the starter because Luck's been dealing with this calf strain for so long. And that division, to me, is incredibly winnable. The Texans just lost their starting running back, and they still don't have an offensive line. The Titans' offense, which has lost Matt LaFleur this offseason, seems to be a mess. I'm not sure who the best quarterback on that roster is. And then there's the Jags, who, if they can get back to the defense they had a couple years ago with Nick Foles, could be an interesting team. But I like the Colts. I think the Colts can win 9 games, and I don't see anyone else in that division winning 10. So they're not the same team, obviously, but I still think they can, and I still think they will win the AFC South.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to like about the Colts, and defensively, it's one of the main things. And you mentioned the draft picks. There's 7 draft picks on defense this year, so they drafted. So hopefully, that influx of young talent will continue to build on what they've done. And offensively, one of the reasons you like Jacoby Brissett so much, or you like that quarterback situation so much, is if Andrew Luck got hurt, you did have the chance to go to Jacoby Brissett. And we've seen so many teams who get deep into the playoff hunt. Their starter gets hurt, the backup can't do it, and then we've seen the reverse of that with Philadelphia. But now with Jacoby being the starter, it's a radically different equation. And we can look at that first season, and he didn't have much lead time. The numbers have not been impressive for him in terms of whether it's
passer rating.
Yeah, take your pick.
Almost any number's below league average.
It's below league average. Now you're hoping, because of what Chris Ballard says and because of what you hear from other guys, that he does have that leadership. He does have that work ethic, that drive, those things, those intangibles that we talk about all the time, that's going to help him continue to grow in this system. As a team, as a whole, as an organization, they're doing so many positive things. This is just such a devastating blow so late in the process. It's going to be interesting to see how they recover.
I love to hear the confirmation with the general manager, Chris Ballard, what he said. And it was a confirmation with my good friend Bill Parcells talked about Jacoby. He's been mentoring him for approximately 5 years. Now, I saw Jacoby in high school because he's from South Florida. Went to big-time high school. Dwyer was a 5-star quarterback there, and they were a 2-sport star on their basketball team. So I had heard about his leadership. He signs to go to University of Florida. It doesn't work out there. He goes to NC State. Had been hearing great things about him behind the scenes there in New England before he was traded. So I would expect him to be better than your average quarterback. And the reason why, that offensive line, that wasn't there before when he was playing, and also the wide receiving core. They got Funches to be opposite of T.Y. Hilton. They brought Eric Ebron over, had a Pro Bowl season last year, coming over from Detroit. He's fulfilling his potential as a first-round pick. And they also have Paris Campbell, the second pick from the Buckeyes, second-round pick from the Buckeyes, that'll be playing for them. So he has more tools now than he had before, and with a good defense. So I think that I like them picking them for the division. I was thinking about Jacksonville, but if you think about roster, top to bottom, I like the Colts roster more so than I like anyone else in that division.
Well, I mean, they went from 15-1 odds to win to 30-1.
Oh, I don't think they can win the Super Bowl. Like to me, when you
that
lose,
seems like a big drop-off.
Absolutely. To me, there's different ways to evaluate teams in this league, and there is the barrier for entry of winning a division that doesn't have a great team in it is one level. The barrier of entry of winning 3 or 4 playoff games, all of which will be against good teams or great teams, is drastically different. So you can be a team that can.
That's why the odds reflect that.
And so you can be a viable contender to win your division or to even maybe win 11 games and still have almost no shot at winning the Super Bowl because of who you have to go through en route to getting there.
Okay, so tell me what Jacoby Brissett has to do to get better. What do you want to see from him? Where is he not a complete starting quarterback in this league?
Well, there's a couple things in the sample sizes from earlier. He's got to get the ball out of his hands quicker, which Indy was doing since Frank Wright has taken over and Andrew Luck came back. He's also got to be more accurate with the football. And that means, like, when you're getting zone, I want the ball on the right number. Typically, inside zone, the ball's going to be coming my inside so the receiver can react to the defender. Man-to-man, put the ball in front of people so they can get catch and run. And when they blitz you, which they're going to do, man, you got to take the heart out of the defense by taking those big shots down the field and hitting them with a higher percentage. Those 3 things right there, and it would lead to him being, which I believe is above average NFL quarterback as a starter.
To me, the most important thing is the level of sacks that he took. And we talked about this with Andrew Luck. When you play a young player, when you play an inexperienced guy, they're going to take sacks at a higher rate than an older guy because they don't really understand the cost-benefit ratio. So now here we are, 2 years down the track, what type of decision making is he going to have when it comes time to that? And the O-line has gotten better, the running game has gotten better, the supporting cast has gotten better. So I'd want to see a significant amount of progress in the amount of times that he's either being hit or being sacked, because the next step is much further back.
You mentioned 2017. They didn't have many things where he was above league average that he was very good at. The one part of his game that statistically, even with the supporting cast, lack of offensive line, was excellent in 2017 was his completion percentage and success rate on deep passes. He had that. Now, T.Y. Hilton probably deserves a lot of credit for that. He's been great at that his whole career, but he was very good at that aspect. Where he was the worst in the league was sack percentage. 10% of his dropbacks ended in a sack. Some of that was the offensive line, but a lot of that was how long he held on to the football. I think Bill Barnwell pointed out he held on to the ball one of the highest rates of any quarterback in the league. So the offensive line will be better. He's got to get the ball out quicker. That deep pass, if that's still there, because Paris Campbell helps with that, obviously T.Y. Hilton is still there as well, I think he can be a middling quarterback. And in that division, there's only one, to me, excellent quarterback. That's Deshaun Watson. And he's going to be running for his life the whole season. So if they were in a different division, I'd feel differently. In the AFC South, I think they can still win it.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.